Mars in Gemini is theoretically very similar to Mars in Taurus. What I mean is, to understand Mars in Gemini, it's basically the same as understanding Mars in Taurus. But the biggest difference between Gemini and Taurus is that when Mars is in Gemini, there's a base fundamental clash between Mars being essentially male and Taurus being essentially female. When Mars is in Gemini, on the other hand, that clash is not as pronounced. It's not nearly as pronounced, because Gemini is not a feminine sign. It's a gender iffy sign. It's a gender bender. It's a gender neutral sign. So, although the same synergies and resonances will pop up between Mars and Taurus or Mars and Gemini, the intensity or the effect that they have isn't the same in Gemini as it is in Taurus, because the basic underlying nature of Mars and Gemini isn't as contradictory as it is when Mars is in Taurus. So with that understood, let's go ahead and look at some of the basic, most important resonances between the planet Mars and the sign Gemini. The first thing to understand is Mars is a planet which signifies tools and the use of tools. Why? Because Mars is masculine. Masculinity has three components to it, one of which is strength. Strength, it extends itself through tools, and weapons are a subset of tools. So Mars represents using weapons and using tools. Gemini is the intellect. Fundamentally, Gemini is the intellect. It represents the intellect because it's ruled by Mercury, and it's an air sign, which is intellectual. So it's not an abstract resonance. Like, it's not far off, because what we have to understand is the intellect is the primary tool that everybody uses. That's what the intellect is. It's an indriya, which means a tool. Well, in Sanskrit, all of the senses are called indriyas, and the intellect is the primary sense. So these are all tools for consciousness. The senses are tools for consciousness, and the intellect, being the primary sense, is the primary tool. So Mars being in Gemini actually has a fundamentally good resonance. And this is what causes the difference of effect when Mars is in Gemini versus Mars in Taurus. When Mars is in Taurus, the fundamental resonance is dissonant. It's a clash between male and female. When Mars is in Gemini, the fundamental resonance is harmonious between tools and tools. Mars is the tool user. Gemini is the tool. That's actually a very good matchup to put the planet, which is the tool user, in the sign which provides the tool. So the basic result for Mars in Gemini is an intelligent person. Now, there's so many different varieties of intelligence and intelligent people, so let's be a little bit more specific about what type of intelligent person. You could say a good tool user. And, you know, it doesn't just mean sticks and stones and arrowheads and hammers. Tools are techniques. Tools are technologies. Tools are sophistications as well, right? But because it's Mars, the rest of the coloration of Mars is going to affect the coloration of every kind of interpretation that you're giving relating to Mars. So when we say that Mars in Gemini indicates an intelligent person, it's a person that's a good tool user, or a person who's good at extending their strength, a person who's good at making effective use of whatever strengths or assets they have. So you'll find that they're good strategists, or they're good attackers, or they're good with war, or they're good with combat, or they're good with sports. They're intelligent in those types of things. Competition, they're intelligent with that. Now let's look at the rest of the synergies between Mars and Gemini. The rest of the synergies are not harmonious. The rest of the synergies are like Mars and Taurus. In fact, they're almost identical. So the next one to look at is Mars' independence. And Gemini represents friendship or cooperation, just like Taurus represented cooperation, but it was more in a romantic context because the ruler is Venus. Gemini represents cooperation as well, but it's more in a friendly or social context because the ruler is Venus. So here with Mars and Gemini, the clash is between independence and friendship. And whereas the interpretation that we get from Mars and Taurus was pretty negative, for Mars and Gemini, the interpretation is not really as negative. Why? Because it goes back to the fundamental resonance between Mars and Gemini is okay, whereas the fundamental resonance between Mars and Taurus was not okay. So the way that you should interpret, or just start your interpretation, make the basis for your interpretation of this part of Mars and Gemini, is that this kind of person, the native who has Mars and Gemini, is the kind of person who is independent in their friendships. Use that as the phrase to guide your visualization of what Mars and Gemini really represents. Independent in their friendships. They choose their friends themselves. Maybe the rest of the kids in the school don't like this person, but a Mars and Gemini person doesn't care. They make their own decision if they like the person. So classic texts say that they make unusual friends. And classic texts also say that they like to go to foreign countries. So they like to meet new people. They like to befriend atypically. They're independent in their friendship. So just because everybody thinks the foreigners are weird, that actually kind of interests Mars and Gemini to go and see who are these people that everybody thinks are weird. So that's one of the key traits of Mars and Gemini, is that they will have an independent or individualistic sense of who they will befriend. They're not really going to be the best cooperators, but it's not as terribly jarring as Mars and Taurus. They will make the best kind of friendships with people who are exotic to their native culture, or people who are like not befriended typically by most of their native culture. Another resonance between Mars and Gemini is that Mars being male signifies inception, or getting things started. And this clashes with Gemini in a similar way that it clashed with Taurus. Taurus was the sign of endurance, so that clashes with starting. Gemini is the sign of balance or lightness. So that does clash with Mars's nature, which decisively likes newness. And newness unbalances things, whereas Gemini likes to maintain a balance. So what you can bear in mind when thinking about the effect of Mars in Gemini on this count is that the natives of this placement will be quick. Let's use that as a keyword to describe them. They'll be quick about things because there's this lightness that's working with their inceptivity. So they're a little bit too quick, let's say. So they'll be very eager to join new things. Mars and Gemini, they'll be very eager to try new things, go new places. It's another reason why they like foreign places. But this usually winds up in them having, similar to Mars and Taurus, too much on their plate, biting off more than they can chew, getting involved in so many things, having multiple passions. And then it's difficult to maintain interest in the multiple passions, and then you run the risk of all of them petering out. The final resonance that I want to discuss that's very important to understanding the fundamental nature of Mars in Gemini is that Mars is the planet of competition. It's masculine. Masculine is strength. Strength means strong people. Strong people means competing with each other. The people with the muscles and the talents and the powers, they show it by competing. So Mars is the planet of contest and sports, etc. Mercury's sign Gemini, it's not about competition. Mercury's sign Gemini is about equalization, equality, sameness, pureness, sharing. So there's a clash between the planet trying to engage in competition, but the sign asking the planet to be cooperative. Again, this is exactly the same as what Mars is facing in Taurus, except in Gemini it's not as heavy. And it's not as romance or marriage related as it is in Taurus. Here it's socially related in Gemini, and it's not as negative. So what the basic initial expectation for your prediction or your interpretation of Mars in Gemini is, here's a person who actually likes to compete. They'll get along well with other people that like to compete, and they could cooperate well on competition things. They could cooperate well competitively. So maybe they'll like sports, or they like other people who don't get drained or put off by being competitive with each other. Competition always equals struggle and fighting, whether it's physical fighting or not. It's always what competition means. So also Mars and Gemini. Gemini is very non-confrontational, but Mars is very confrontational. So that's another aspect of this same dissonance. So these natives, they kind of prefer to fight. They prefer to compete. So they do wind up getting in often situations which are argumentative or fighty. Now to give some faces to Mars and Gemini. The first group I have are very famous kind of political or social figures. Martin Luther King, Coco Chanel, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the United States of America, Mussolini, Alexander the Great, and Julius Caesar. So think about all these people. All the people are very foreign, involved with foreign things all the time, right? They're very international. Like Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, they're going into foreign countries with the idea to compete there and conquer and win it. Mussolini, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, dealing with international stuff all the time. Martin Luther King is like a global figure. Coco Chanel, she's not being tied into her social norm. She's choosing her own, she's doing the independence versus cooperation thing, and the independence versus friendship thing, where she's choosing what she's going to befriend and like. She's not just accepting what the norms are that a woman should like. Yeah. Then the next group of 4 names are some of the musicians that have Mars and Gemini. Jim Morrison, Courtney Love, Kylie Minogue, and then Jenna Jameson, not a musician, a porn star, close. Jim Morrison, confrontational, not very cooperative, yet very passionate and fiery with the words. It's one thing that classics often say about Mars and Gemini is this intellect that they have gives them some passion for using words, so they wind up liking wordplay. Jim Morrison, a poet. Courtney Love, Kylie Minogue, Jenna Jameson, these are very Marsy women. So Mars is coming into Gemini. It's getting into a neutral area. Gemini is about what you cooperate with, what you befriend, what you have fun with. Mars is coming into this environment. So they have fun being Marsy. They have fun acting bold and outgoing and independent. A couple of male actors, Al Pacino, Sean Connery, Jason Momoa. Very, obviously their Mars is pretty important in the chart, but it's in an artistic place. So they're like manly figures, but that Mars is coming through some artistry or intellect or skill. Then you have quite a few significant athletes, actually, with Mars and Gemini. This was actually conspicuously lacking with Mars and Aries, and certainly wasn't there with Mars and Taurus. But we find a lot of important athletes with Mars and Gemini. Why? Because this is what they enjoy. They enjoy Marsy things. They are skilled in competition. They're skilled in Marsy things. They have intellect for Mars. They know how to fight. They know how to win. Mars and Gemini puts your sports initiatives into an intellectual, skilled area, Gemini. So it's good. It's favorable to athletes. So you got Arnold Schwarzenegger, big bodybuilder. Mike Tyson, big fighter. The Rock, big wrestler, bodybuilder. Tiger Woods, a golfer. O.J. Simpson, football player and famous murderer. Now what we do in these videos with the planets and the signs is I show you a consistent technique and that you can use for any planet and any sign. And the technique is very simple. You look for where the planet symbolizes something that's very, very similar to what the sign symbolizes. And once you find that, you assess whether or not the planet and the sign are harmonious about that thing, or whether they're antithetical about that thing. The dissonant resonance reveals what's complex or difficult for the native. The harmonious resonance, on the other hand, indicates what's easy, what comes natural, what's an inherent strength for the native. What I'm teaching you really is the method of how to do astrological interpretation by going down into the engine of the symbolism and comparing the parts. The actual interpretation that you should give is going to be individualized per the individual chart. So if you have person A with the moon in Scorpio and person B with the moon in Scorpio, it's not going to be exactly the same interpretation, because person B's moon might have an aspect from something and person A's moon doesn't, etc., 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 etc. But what I'm showing you in the videos is the backbone of what a planet and a sign symbolizes. And once you understand that backbone, you modify it based on the circumstances, the extraneous circumstances that are affecting an individual chart. So I hope you really like this system, not just this one video, but all the videos that we do on the planets and the signs. We'll do them all. And I hope you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of those. And I hope to see you around soon. Thank you.